Okay. Shalom. I am back. Um, we're gonna read some scriptures. Are you ready to dig into it? I'm sure you are. Okay. So here's my notes. All right. So you want to go ahead. We'll turn to the first verse that's mentioned. 1 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 and 7. Although there's other verses where Hiram's name is mentioned, but that's what we're going to look at first. Okay? All right. I think the video skipped. Okay. It was acting funny. Hopefully sometimes the video will skip and then it's like I'm talking and then it will just skip to another few seconds. I'm just looking at the time, making sure the time works. Okay, the appendix. All right, so as I mentioned in my other video, I'm going to go through the scripture verses in this video so that you can better digest what I said in the video I just released, the Greatest Addendum video. All right. So I titled this, obviously, Proof that King Hiram of Tyre is a man of the tribe of Naphtali. I will link those other two. I think there's only one YouTube video that mentions the details from other historical sources to prove that he is. All right. And as I mentioned, there are two Hirams of Tyre mentioned in 1 Kings and 2 Chronicles. First Hiram is king of Zor. Let's look at 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 1 and 7. So turn with me to 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 1 through 7. All right. And Hiram did actually have some involvement with David. Okay, so keep that in mind. He did. But I'm just focusing on the relationship between him and Shlomo. And I might just backtrack to his relationship with David, which just doesn't give as much detail as we have with Shlomo, with King Solomon. Okay, verse 1. And Hiram, king of Zor, sent his servants to Shlomo, for he heard that they had anointed him king in the room of his father, for Hiram was ever a lover of David. Okay, he loved David. Hiram loved David. And Shlomo, who, obviously who had married Bathsheba, and I mentioned about how Bathsheba was of the tribe of Naphtali and Manasseh, and I showed you that. And verse 2, and Shlomo sent to Hiram. All right. So he sent a message to Hiram, okay, essentially. Or he sent his messengers to him. And I'm not going to read that message. But pay attention to this. This man was a man who blessed Yahuwah, Hiram. Okay. Verse 7. I'm skipping down to verse 7, the same chapter. And it came to pass when Hiram heard the words of Shlomo that he rejoiced greatly and said, Blessed be Yahuwah this day, who has given unto David a wise son over this great people. And verse 8, and Hiram sent to Shlomo. So Hiram sent a message with his messengers to Shlomo. Okay, so that's how they corresponded. Obviously, they wrote something, and their messengers, their servants, will go and deliver the message to each corresponding king. Okay, there's a reason why I'm saying this. I'll get to it. So essentially, Hiram in verse 9 asks Shlomo in terms of for all the service that he's going to provide Shlomo, he wants food for his household. In exchange, he wants food for his household. All right. And verse 11, and Shlomo gave Hiram 20,000 measures of wheat for food to his household and 20 measures of pure oil. Thus gave Shlomo to Hiram year by year. Listen to this. Verse 12. And Yahuwah gave Shlomo wisdom as he promised him, and there was shalom between Hiram and Shlomo, and they two made a league together. That word league is not league. The King James should have kept it the way it said it in Hebrew. It said habrit. Okay? Berit. They made a covenant together. That is what the word says in Hebrew. I don't know why they wrote league there in 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 12, but the real word in Hebrew is habrit. They made a covenant with each other. It was a brotherly covenant, and we'll see that later on. Now, going to 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 13 and 14, I want to show you that this is still the same King Hiram, okay? Because I'm going to show you in 2 Chronicles that King Hiram sent another man named Hiram Abi to him, but in this case, King Shlomo sent his servants to get Hiram out of Zor to do this particular work, and I'm going to show you the contrast here. All right. So 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 13 and 14. And King Shlomo sent and fetched Hiram out of Zor. Verse 14. He was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Zor, a worker in brass. And he was filled with wisdom and understanding and cunning to work all works in brass. And he came to King Shlomo, because he was summoned, okay, essentially, and wrought all his work. Okay. Now he made these two pillars. I'm going to look at verse 21 and 22. And he, talking about Hiram, set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set the right pillar and called its name. Okay, he speaks Hebrew. This man is an Israelite. Called the name Yakin. And he set up the left pillar and called the name thereof Boaz. And upon a top of the pillars was lily work. So the work of the pillars were finished. Okay, I highlighted that in relation to Psalm 45 in my last video. All right. So he made everything pertaining to brass and brass only. Okay. All right. So you can read the rest of that chapter in that particular context. Now, I want to focus on 2 Chronicles. Let's go to 2 Chronicles to show you that this other Hiram was a different Hiram. Okay, who worked all kinds of things. Okay, 2 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 11. Then Hiram, okay, or Huram, the king of Zor, answered in writing, which he sent to Shlomo, because he wrote this: because Jehovah has loved his people and has made you king over them. Hiram said, moreover, blessed be Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, that made heaven and earth, who has given to David the king a wise son, endowed with prudence and understanding, that might build a house for Jehovah and a house for his kingdom. And now I have sent, listen, I have sent a cunning man endowed with understanding of Huram Abi. Okay. I have sent a cunning man endowed with wisdom, Huram Abi, the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, and his father, man of Zor. Okay. In Hebrew doesn't say was. So if it doesn't say was, you can assume that he is. Okay. His father, man of Zor, skillful to work in gold and in silver, in brass, iron, in stone, in timber, in purple, in blue, and in fine linen, and in crimson. Also to grave any matter of gravings, and to find out every device which shall be put to him with the cunning men, with your cunning men, and the cunning men of Adoni David your father. Okay. Now understand this. You hear this particular Hiram is skilled in what? He's skilled in 10 things, and he can make engravings. This is not the same Hiram that I mentioned in 1 Kings chapter 7. That Hiram was actually King Hiram, who could only work brass. This Hiram was a different Hiram who would supervise the whole work of the temple, because he was skilled in gold, silver, brass, iron, stone, timber, purple, blue, fine linen, and crimson. The other Hiram, which was the actual king, King Hiram didn't send himself, okay? Shlomo sent for him. Shlomo sent his servants and fetched him out, brought him out of Zor to do the work in brass. But this Hiram was skilled in all kinds of stuff. Okay, so I want to make a distinction that these are two Hirams. All right, and I showed you that how he actively blessed Jehovah of Israel in 1 Kings chapter 5 verse 7 and 2 Chronicles chapter 2 verse 11 and 12. All right, now I want to also show you in verse 5 verse 12. I already did that. I'm sorry, I already did that. I showed you that they made a brotherly covenant in 1 Kings chapter 5 verse 12. I'm going down the list. And let's look at also 1 Kings chapter 9, okay, starting in verse 11. Okay, 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 11. Now Hiram, the king of Zor, had furnished Shlomo with cedar trees and fir trees and with gold according to all his desire. That then King Shlomo gave Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee. All right. Okay, he did all this work and service, and the only thing that King Hiram asked for all the service that he gave was food for his household. So he did not have to give him 20 cities in the land of Galilee. Okay, this is why I'm proposing that this probably might be a bride price because they made a brotherly covenant with each other. Okay. King Shlomo gave Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee. And as I mentioned, this is a land in the tribe of Naphtali. And Hiram came out from Zor to see the cities. Okay, so he actually comes out from the city of Zor, goes down to Galilee, all right, to see these cities, which Shlomo had given him, and they pleased him not. And he said, verse 13, and he said, What cities are these which you have given me, my brother? Okay, they made a brotherly covenant. He's like, hey, my brother, we brothers. What is this? He's like, you gave me these 20 cities. This is like, what is this? And he called them the land of Kabul unto this day. Kabul, like Kabul, Afghanistan, it means sterile, useless. He's like, what am I going to do with these cities? It's like, can I farm? He's like, he probably like desert to him. He's like, what am I going to do with these cities? He called them Kabul, right? Verse 14, and Hiram sent to the king 60 talents of gold, which is 120 talents of gold. Okay, so he kept sending him gold, right? And Shlomo gave him these 20 cities in the land of Galilee, which I propose that this was probably a bride price for King Hiram's daughter. Is not stated outright, but it's implied because, the only thing that King Hiram asked for in exchange for his service was food for his household. So the mere fact that King Shlomo would give him 20 cities in the land of Galilee is like giving him a bride price to take Hiram's daughter. Remember I told you about that? If that be the case, then the daughter of Zor will be able to take what they received as a bride price and convert it into a gift to give to the actual bride. So now we can look at some more verses. Let's see. Make sure I covered everything. I think I covered most of everything here. I showed you the Hebrew from the other one. Okay. I'm just checking through. Let's look at, before I look at Amos chapter 1, verse 9, let's look at Psalm chapter 87. Okay, Psalm chapter 87. Okay. Psalm chapter 87 reads, his foundation is in the holy mountains. Verse 1. His foundation is in the holy mountains. Jehovah loves the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Yaakov. So keep in mind, he's referring to the dwellings of Yaakov. Glorious things are spoken of you, O city of Elohim. Selah. I will make mention of Rechab and Babel to them that know me. Behold, Peleshet, that's Philistia, Zor, and Cush. This man was born there. And of Zion shall be said, this and that man was born in her. And the highest himself shall establish her. Yehovah shall count when he writes up the people that this man was born there. Selah. And as well, the singers, as the players on instruments, shall be there. All my springs are in you. Now, the string instruments, okay? The players on instruments, the singers and the players on instruments. I'm going to go into Psalm 45 a little bit more, so you can see the connection of all these things that I'm teaching much more clearly. I think that's, yes. And I need to read 2nd Ezra. I'm sorry. 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 45, so I can make that connection there. Amos chapter 1, verse 9. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to flip to Amos. Amos chapter. Okay, I see. Amos chapter, what's that? Page 437. Okay, Amos chapter 1, verse 9 reads, Thus says Jehovah, for 3 transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they delivered up the whole captivity to Edom, and remembered not the brotherly covenant. But I will send a fire on the wall of Tyrus, which shall devour the palaces thereof. They had built palaces in that city, the city of Zor. They had built palaces. But obviously, we know what they're guilty of, not keeping the brotherly covenant and delivering up the whole captivity to Edom. All right. And Tyrus was burned with fire by the Babylonians. And then the island was burned later on. I'm trying to remember which year. I think it was 291 AD, something like that. Sometime after BC into AD. Okay, because there was a brotherly covenant between Zor, between Tyre and Israel, particularly the kingly lineage between Yehuda, the line of Dawid, the kingly line. Okay, I read that verse. And let's see. Let's read 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 45. Okay, I'm trying to find it here. Okay, 501. Okay. 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 45. Verse 45. And for that country there was a great way to go, namely 1.5 years. And the same region is called Eretz, that means land. Eretz. Okay. In Hebrew is Eretz, Eretz. Okay. Other land. It sounds like, it reminds me of like other brother land, right? The other brother land. Okay. But for through that country there was a great way to go, namely 1.5 years. The same region is called Sereth. Okay. And they dwelt there until the latter time. And now when they shall begin to come, okay, that means at one point in time they will come back from there. All right. Let's see. Verse 40, I'm going to go up a little bit. It gives in more detail about what happened. Verse 40 of 2nd Ezra chapter 13, it reads, Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hoshea the king, that was the last king of the northern kingdom, whom Salmanaser, the king of Ashur, led away captive. And he carried them over the river, and so they came into the latter land, Eretz, Eret, which is Sareth. But they took counsel amongst themselves that they would leave the multitude of the people and go forth into a further land from a world where the seed of Adam never dwelt, that they might there keep their Torah, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the narrow way of the river Perath, which is Euphrates. For the Most High then showed signs for them and restrained the springs of the river until they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely a year and a half, and the region was called Eretz Eretz Arsareth, and they dwelt there until the later time, and now when they shall begin to come. Okay, so I read from 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, verse 40 through 46. Okay, so it tells you that when they traveled to a far, far land where man did not dwell. Okay, and these are pretty much those 10 tribes, which I know these are the Native Americans that traveled. You know, if you're going from the Middle East and you're traveling 18 months to get to the Americas, okay, probably some of them went by ship, and probably some of them went by land. Probably took the same amount of time both ways. If you went by ship, it probably took you a year and a half. If you went by land, it probably took you a year and a half. But that's where I honestly believe that's where they came. They came to the Americas. It took some time to travel to get that far, but they were trying to get far, far away from the rest of mankind, you know, so that they could have a place without being having interference. You know, just think about it. This land, the Americas, was a land that, you know, we talk about the Pilgrims. They came looking for religious freedom as well, to come and observe Yah's word the way they saw fit in this land. Isn't that interesting, the parallelism that we see? But in this case, it took a year and a half to get here. All right. And these are, I know we're going to shout out doubt in my spirit, these are the Native Americans, which are of the 10 tribes of Israel. Okay. So let's look at Psalm 45. Okay. Let's culminate all this back into Psalm 45. So now we can understand Psalm 45 much better with all this context I've given you. Let's start from the very top, not verse 1, but from that little title head up above, okay? To the chief musician, upon Shoshanim, for the sons of Korach, Miskel, a love song, or a song of loves, okay? Remember I said Shoshanim means lilies? It literally means lilies. Shoshanim means lilies in Hebrew. So keep that in mind, okay? When I talked about those two pillars in my last video, Yakin and Boaz, and he put lily work upon each pillar. Okay. Shoshanim. Okay, there's a song. There's an old song about that. Okay, verse 1. I'm going to start from verse 1. I'm just going to break it down. My heart is inditing a good matter. I speak of the things which I have made touching the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Verse 2. You are fairer than the children of men. Really, it's just saying you're more handsome than the children of men. Grace is poured into your lips. Therefore, Elohim has blessed you forever. Gird your sword upon your thigh, O most mighty, with your glory and your majesty. And in your majesty, ride prosperously because of truth and meekness and righteousness. Okay, this is very important. Because of truth and meekness and righteousness. Woo, there's a song. I'm going to put a link to that song. Woo, by Praise Sings. He mentions these 3 pillars. Woo. Okay, this brought me back to that. Okay, verse 4. I'm still in verse 4. In your majesty, ride prosperously because of truth, meekness, and righteousness. And your right hand shall teach you terrible things. Your arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemy. Okay, arrows, gemstone arrows. What are those arrows made of? Okay, see, that makes me think about all these little details. Whereby the people fall under you. Okay, verse 5 again. Your arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies, whereby the people fall under you. Verse 6. Your throne, O Elohim, is forever and ever. The scepter of your kingdom is a right scepter. You love righteousness and hate wickedness. Therefore, Elohim, your Elohim, has anointed you with the oil of gladness above your fellows. All your garments smell of myrrh, aloe, and cassia. Okay, remember the bride price, the linen garment, the myrrh, the aloe, the cassia I mentioned in the bride price video. Out of the ivory palaces whereby they have made you glad. Now, that word they can also mean stringed instruments. So it could also read, out of the ivory palaces whereby the string instruments have made you glad. And Abba enlightened my eyes that these ivory palaces are palaces of pearl. These are, remember those 12 pearls I mentioned in the bride price? How each pearl represents one of the tribes of Israel. These ivory palaces are represents each tribe, okay, made of pearl. Okay, these are really palaces of pearl, because pearl and ivory are almost synonymous with are almost synonymous with each other. If it's ivory, it's pearl. If it's pearl, it's ivory. Okay, so out of the ivory palaces, all right, whereby they or the string instruments have made you glad. Verse 9. King's daughters were among your honorable women, and upon your right hand did stand the queen in gold of Ophir. Where did that gold come from? Ophir. The queen is in what? Gold of Ophir. This is the only time, this is one of the two times you mention anything that involving a location. Okay, gold from where? Ophir. Okay, who was retrieving the gold from Ophir? There you got it. The men of Zor. Hiram, King Hiram of Zor, was the one getting the gold from Ophir to give it to who? King Shlomo, to build the temple and the palaces. Okay, so keep that in mind. We're bringing it all together now so we can make more sense of this chapter 45. Verse 10. Now, I explained King's daughters in the other video. King's daughters is referring to really daughters of councils, royal councils who go out and are ambassadors of a kingdom, but they're in different countries, like we have embassies, okay? So these are daughters of these councils, royal councils. That's what it means in Hebrew, okay? Verse 10, you know what that is. Shemi bat urei wehati, a snake, okay? Hearken, O daughter, and consider, and incline your ear. Forget also your own people and your father's house. So shall the king greatly desire your beauty, for he is your Adonai. Worship you him. Okay? So it's like, listen, daughter. Remember? Forget your own people. The king wants you, okay? The king desires your beauty. Some Bible verses say loveliness. He finds you lovely. He wants you, okay? He is your Adonai. Go worship him. All right? Verse 12. And the daughter of Zor shall be there with a gift. A dowry, right? Shall be there with a gift. Even the rich among the people shall entreat your favor. So now you understand that the daughter of Zor is the relative to the bride, who both of them are all collectively of the tribe of, you got it, Naphtali. All right, I showed you that with the King Hiram, the greatest addendum to those two videos. All right. And the daughter of Zor shall be there with the gift. Even the rich among the people shall entreat your favor. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Her clothing is of wrought gold. Now, remember, the royal daughter, it said it's the princess. Now you can probably understand which princess we're referring to. It's referring to the Naphtali king of Zor's, his daughter. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Her clothing is of wrought gold. Remember, what's that gold from? Ophir. You got it. Who's this king's daughter? Who's this princess of? A Naphtali king of Zor. Cain. She's getting ready to marry, obviously, the king of Yehuda, the king of Israel, of the lineage of David. Cain, right? Mm-hmm. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Her clothing is of wrought gold. Verse 14, she shall be brought unto the king in raiment of needlework. Okay, who did the needlework? Who was good with needlework? Oh, Hiram Abi. Ah, ha ha. You were getting there. The virgins, her companions that follow her, shall be brought unto you. With gladness and rejoicing they shall be brought. They shall enter the king's palace. Okay, the king's palace. Verse 16. Instead of your fathers shall be your children, whom you may make princes, not princesses, but princes in all the earth. Verse 17. I will make your name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore, remember, I will make, listen to how deep this is. I will make your name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore, the people praise you forever and ever, for all eternities, okay? Forever and ever. We know this is talking about the Mashiach, Yeshua HaMashiach, and the queen, his queen, all right? We know now where this connection comes from with Hiram, the brotherly covenant that was made with the king of Israel, the united king of Israel, obviously, of King Shlomo, who was of King David, okay, of the tribe of Judah, Yehuda, with having a brotherly covenant with the Naphtali king of Zor. Okay, so there's obviously wasn't just an exchange of goods like food and gold and stuff. It was also exchange of families. Okay, so I know that was a lot. The Ruach HaKodesh schooled me yesterday. I got schooled, y'all. I wasn't even expecting it. You know, he just told me, go just look up a little bit more information about, you know, Zor, Tyre, you know, Hiram. Go look in the scriptures. I got schooled. I was like, what? Okay. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed that. I hope I didn't bore you. You know, I hope you didn't get bored and whatnot. It was amazing. I was like, oh, but you're so amazing because you knew I was like, you probably hear from the other video, like there's certain things I was like, Hiram and Shelman, but I was really quick about their relationship because I did study it, but you know, like I said, when they translate things incorrectly, then you know you relay the information incorrectly. And that's why I just like, let me go back and look at the Hebrew, the Ibrit. And once I saw the Ibrit, I was like, yeah, Cain is yes, Cain. Game on. So anyway, just take the time to look at all those. I'm gonna have to, you know, like I said, post the other video, and the scriptures. But man, that was last night was fruitful. But man, I was not expecting it. It was not. So anyway, with that, I say shalom, shalom, and shalom.